Hello, welcome back to the Perspective podcast with myself, Jess and Jessica. Jess, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yep, I'm also on BA Product Design and currently doing the self-directed project.
So we're going to chat to you a little bit about your eggshell ceramics and your projects that you've done with it. Do you want to just give us a bit of an introduction as to what eggshell ceramics are?
Yeah, so eggshell ceramics is kind of what it sounds. It's a ceramic-like material made from waste crushed eggshells. So it kind of has the appearance of ceramics, but it's a lot more lightweight and almost like cardboard in weight.
Okay.
And it can be kind of used in lots of different kind of material textures and like the build of it, so it can be like flat, or you could make a bowl with it, those kind of things. But yeah, it's really interesting. It's also biodegradable, so it's a completely circular material that then once you finish with it can go back in the ground and provides nutrients to the soil, which is really good and regenerative. So yeah, that's.
How long does it last once you've made it?
So currently I did just do a test of that, but it's basically like as it is in its really sort of singular form. So I use potato starch and sodium alginate, which is like a powder derived from seaweeds, which is also biodegradable. That just like as it is it biodegrades pretty quickly. Like I think I've had it in water, soil and cleaner for probably now like 8-9 days, and it's virtually not really there. Soil takes a little bit longer, but then once you start adding in sort of other elements and things like that, which is what I'm starting to do at the moment, it takes a little bit longer. So it kind of depends what else you add to it, but not long really.
Cool, amazing.
So how did you first get into eggshell ceramics? Kind of how did you find it, and what made you want to pursue it further?
So I actually came across it in it was Grant Gibson's podcast, Material Matters. I got really interested in sort of waste materials and that kind of thing in placement year, actually, because I was sort of thinking, what should I do for my projects in final year? And going to lots of the exhibitions and stuff like that with product design. There was just so many people doing really cool materials, and I was like, I really like the look of this, and I'm also quite big on the environment, so I wanted to try and do stuff that would be quite like not as harmful to the environment. So I got really into Grant Gibson's podcast because he has lots of different material people who not just waste materials, but lots of different. But there basically was, I can't remember the designer's name, but she works for Nature Squared, which is like a design company that they do lots of like tiles and stuff like that. So the first time I came across it was this eggshell tile ceramic, which and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I think theirs is slightly different because theirs isn't necessarily biodegradable, because it depends, I think, on the stuff they add. But their stuff was really cool, and it was like they also do eggshell inlaying, which is like where you break up the eggshell and like lay it on the top, so it's like a texture, not just in the substance. But yeah, that just got me really inspired, and then I started researching it further. There's not many designers I've come across doing eggshell ceramics, but the ones that I have seen all kind of use it for different things, whether it's sort of single use, kind of replacing that, or decorative kind of things, because obviously it's biodegradable, so it has limited options if you want to keep the biodegradability of it. But then obviously there's so many options if you wanted to make it circular in other senses. So yeah, that's how I first came across it.
Brilliant, thank you. So how are you sourcing all of your eggshells? Are you finding them from hospitality? Are you finding them yourself, or?
So for the last project, I contacted lots of cafes and bakeries in Nottingham, and I managed to get two bakeries come back to me and say that they wouldn't mind collecting eggshells for me, one of which was Yolk Cafe in Nottingham. And they said they kind of go through the best part of like 700 eggs a week, which is just crazy.
That's mad.
Yeah. So I kind of ended up by the end of it kind of swimming in eggshells. So
nice.
I've actually got lots of them left over, so that's what I'm using currently. And then also collecting from friends, family, my own use of eggshells. So yeah, got lots of eggshells at the moment, but that's where the idea is, to collect it from waste cafes and waste hospitality places.
Did you expect them to say 700 a week? When you first contacted, how many did you expect it to be?
I not seven. Well, I think as well, you don't even really visually can't even comprehend
No.
how much that is. Like I was going 3 times a week, and
Wow.
I was
Oh
like
my
collecting
goodness.
these big boxes of eggshells. And sometimes they'd like crush them down and it'd still fit. It was just like, it was crazy the amount of eggs. And that's just like one cafe in Nottingham. So yeah, I was very surprised at how many eggs gets wasted a week that can be used. So yeah.
What actually happens to the eggs if you hadn't taken them? What would happen to them?
Majority, I'd say, go to landfill, considering the amount of landfill waste is eggshell ceramics, not ceramics, eggshell waste. And also, I think people can compost them, but it's complicated. It's not quite a simple thing of just chucking them into your compost bin. They're quite prone to attracting pests and rodents and things like that. So you have to be a little bit careful, and not everyone's keen on doing that. They are compostable, but the best thing to do is kind of clean them, or at least rinse them, and then even baking them means they'll decompose a lot quicker. But I really don't think many people do that, because you have to then actively take them
that's
out
a
of your
lot of
thing.
work.
And yeah, not many people. Well, some people do compost food, but it's still not as common as like recycling. And then I think just as well as also doing the eggshells is just like not quite there yet. And I think there's also not a lot of knowledge around how you can compost them and things like that.
Yeah, because I definitely didn't realise that you could bake it to decompose it quicker and stuff. Because I just had a preconception that it would probably decompose in like a few weeks. Like in my head, that just made sense. Do you think that there should be more awareness of how many eggs get wasted?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's I mean, I didn't know before really finding out about this person how much it's gone through, but if we think about all the people that are bakers and all of that, like it's never really gonna go away anytime soon, at least. And I think it would be really useful to know actually how you can compost them, but actually how like it's just such a good material that can be used for so many different things.
Yeah.
And as it's being wasted, like why not use it? And I think, more awareness around it might also make it less of an unusual thing to use eggshell ceramics, so people might be more open to it. But yeah, I think definitely more knowledge is always good.
Yeah. I think during this process, are there any ethical issues that you came up against? Obviously, it's an animal product and people do have opinions about that.
Yeah.
So how have you kind of mitigated those?
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of it quite like that, but then it came up recently about the kind of ethical things, and people are sort of striving away from animal products. And I think that's why I did lots of research into it, and I think there's lots around it. And I think in the future, if everyone was to go vegan, then I think, yeah, definitely it's probably not the kind of material you should be using. But for right now, I think it's just so much waste of it that until it's no longer used, then there's no reason why not to. I also think it massively depends on where you're getting your eggs from. And like there's lots of places in the UK that actually are sort of farming chickens for egg laying solely. And there's actually sort of I can't think what it's called, but like systems or like not-for-profit organisations that are sort of taking the chickens that are no longer able to lay eggs, because they do reach a certain point in their life where they get too old and the eggs are no longer good for selling, which normally they would be slaughtered. But there are some farms that don't do that, and they rehome all of their chickens. So I think there's a lot of hope for it in the future. And I also think just it in itself raises a lot of awareness about waste, so it then projects into lots of other things that we could be utilising. But yeah, it's definitely it's a tricky conversation, but yeah.
Well, I would definitely say that it's making a positive out of a bad situation, because as you say, it's raising awareness, but also these products have already been used. The egg has been used in food, and therefore it's a waste product, and you're using the byproduct essentially to create something beautiful. And I don't think that can, obviously some people have different opinions, but I personally don't see how that can be viewed negatively because
No.
you're not personally asking them to use 700 eggs a week. That's just a byproduct of what's occurring already.
No, definitely. And I think it's the whole materials exploration is so new, and it's such like an exciting kind of future thing that could happen. And I think I just think there's lots of other opportunities around it. So I did do a bit of research into things that you could use if it came to a point where eggshells maybe was a little bit too controversial to use. And I just think taking even just the base recipe of how to do the eggshell ceramics can lead to so many other materials that it's just, I think it's more of an exciting awareness kind of thing. And yeah, so I agree.
So how did you manage to incorporate this material into your commercial project, and how has it kind of differed in your major project?
So for the commercial project, so I did the LIA one, which was lighting. And I kind of just thought about the brief, and I was thinking I wasn't really sure how to create an really innovative light because there's just not many waste material lights out there. And I thought that was quite a unique direction to go down. At that point, I hadn't even decided I was going to do eggshell ceramics. But then it wasn't, I just had to sort of get material experimenting, and then through that I was kind of like, oh, so it makes this kind of consistency and this kind of texture. So then it's like, oh, how can you create it? Does it need mold? Because at that point I wasn't even sure if it worked like ceramic on the wheel, or if it was like you could only mold it, or what consistency it would be. And actually for the lighting project, the best consistency I came across was like almost like a cement like mixture, which then means you need molds. So then that was really interesting because it was trying to work with it and creating lots of consistencies. So with the commercial project, I was using it, but it was just so new to me. So then it was kind of still very chalky, and I did a little bit into glazes, but just due to the time constraints, I did look at egg yolk glazes because egg yolk is like a natural sealant. But I don't necessarily want to use animal products that aren't waste, so I wasn't that keen on the egg yolk glaze idea, but I just had a go at doing it, and it actually did come out really well. But then I was worried about lasting effects of that, so I chose for the commercial just to use actually food dye and egg yolk, and then also just food dye and water, which I just did like a really thin rim so that there would be no issues of it like going, not lasting, decaying, that kind of thing. But yeah, for this project, I'm very much trying to get a lot stronger of material. The material is so strong as it is, but it's still quite chalky. So I think looking at glazes more in detail, which is what I'm doing this week, and looking at adding more structural elements. So I've been trying to test out like adding coffee, tea leaves and stuff like that, which has been really interesting to add sort of structural elements. So yeah, it's really exciting at the moment because there's just lots of really crazy materials out there that you can use, and it's like trying to find the ones which are still biodegradable, but then looking at like, can it be circular but maybe not biodegradable, seeing what that has to affect the environment. But yeah, it's been really interesting. I think that this project's a little bit further developed and better in that sense by really looking at the strength of the material. So that's probably where it differs the most between the two.
Have you got an object at the end that you're hoping to design with the material, or? Yeah,
not currently, because I'm still sort of trying to, it's sort of like the material experimentation will direct the project. So it's sort of really trying to look at how the material works, because it's also very different in consistency to how I was having it for the commercial. I've managed to make more of a dough kind of consistency, which means you can sort of mold it, pinch pot it kind of stuff. Still very early, so seeing where that can go. So it's really hard to sort of narrow down the product too early on, because I'm not really sure on yet where the limitations are. And again, like I said, trying to decide whether it can be maybe circular, but maybe it's not biodegradable, or is there such a thing as biodegradable but water resistant? I don't know. So these are like what I'm trying to work out now. But yeah.
That's amazing. So have you, when you're researching this, have other people made sort of moldable eggshell ceramics, or is this something that you've found yourself?
I'm not sure about the consistency of clay. The one who I follow the most is someone called Cynthia Nagle, and she does like the cement kind of mixture, and she does molds, and hers is really cool, and she does lots of natural dyes and that kind of thing. And then other people with the tile stuff, they're adding more substantial stuff into it, but I'm again not sure on the biodegradability of that. And then the only other ones I've really seen is 3D printing of it, and then that's all for decorative projects and not products and like homeware kind of stuff. So very much more sculptural art kind of pieces, or single use kind of like not even Tupperware plates for events and things like that. I've seen that, but that's about it. I literally have like 6 people I've come across doing it. So I feel like that's the bit I'm trying to find, is creating something that's different from those people. So maybe that is looking at the types of materials that are also used in it, or the glazes, and seeing if there is a way to sort of make it more for everyday objects, not just an art piece kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's so exciting that you're treading new ground and, you know, discovering something new. Is there anything that you would tell yourself when you started this project? Is there anything that you would change how you've gone about it?
I think getting ahead sooner with material experimentation would have massively helped me, because then I could have covered so many different things. I think maybe looking as well at like where the difference is again earlier, in terms of what other people are doing and where the niche is and like where you can go in, and maybe again I feel like experimenting with more materials would make it really interesting, because there's lots of biomaterials out there, all very interesting, and seeing how they can incorporate together, which I might still do, but it does always come down to a time frame thing. So I think if I'd got on to that kind of stuff earlier, looked more broadly at that kind of stuff, I might have been in a slightly different position in where it would go, maybe have a slightly better idea of where it's going to go. But it's all exciting, but that's also part of the scare of doing it, is because you don't really know where it's going to go. But yeah, it's been really interesting though.
Yeah. Do you think this is something that you'd want to pursue after uni, going into like careers, or do you think you'll leave it where it's at once this is done?
I mean, I find the material experimentation, like biomaterials, the future of those kind of materials, so interesting. So like, yeah, I'd probably love to do something like that. I don't know yet what that would be. And I don't know. I think as well, it's trying to find how to make the product design really sustainable. That's like my interest. So whether that is the biomaterial things or something else, I'm not sure yet, but I definitely think I would love to do material futures and experimentation and stuff like that. But yeah.
I think definitely it's such a niche, and you leaving university and having this kind of level of education in this specific area already, I think is going to be really beneficial. I'm sure there's definitely some companies out there that would want to leverage on that. So I think it's really exciting. Yeah. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Perspective podcast with myself, Millie, and our guest Jessica. We hope to see you next time.
Bye.